Today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you a warm autumn card project featuring the new Harvest of Wishes stamp set from the new Grateful Heart Stamp TV kit and the Emboss Resist technique. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this project. First, you're going to need some of the stamps from the new Harvest of Wishes stamp set. This is one of the 4 mini stamp sets that comes in the new Grateful Heart Stamp TV kit. Then you're going to need some ink pads, and I've chosen a few of the Gina Designs inks. I have our honey mustard ink, some of the fresh asparagus, the new prickly pear, some dark chocolate, some of the new craft ink, and our black onyx. Then you're going to need some dies. You can also use punches for this, or you can use your electronic cutter. I'm using 2 Spellbinders dies. This is from the standard circles, and this is from the scalloped circles. Then you're also going to need a little bit of Versamark ink and some embossing powder, and I have some of the Superfine Detail Clear Powder by Ranger. You're going to need an Embossing Magic pad to remove any oils or debris from the surface of the piece of cardstock, and it will also eliminate some of the static that would be on that cardstock. You're also going to need some sponge daubers. So I have 5 of my jumbo sponge daubers here. You can also use the foam blending tool by Tim Holtz if you have that one, or any kind of sponges that you have in your collection. I'm going to use some of our new craft ribbon. This is our craft double stitch ribbon in the 5/8 of an inch, and this does come in the Grateful Heart Stamp TV kit. And for cardstock, I'm using the Gina Designs ivory cardstock, some of our dark chocolate, and I've got some patterned paper from the new Grateful Heart 6x6 pattern paper collection. All of these papers and cardstocks also come in the new Grateful Heart Stamp TV kit. So let's begin. Let me get some of this out of the way here. I'm going to start with a strip of ivory cardstock. And I've cut this to work with a piece of dark chocolate as a layer, and then I have a larger layer for behind it in the ivory again. So we're going to have a nice band going across the center of our card. I'm going to start by removing that static using the Embossing Magic pad and just rubbing it all over the surface. And then I'm going to use this beautiful sunflower stamp that comes in the Harvest of Wishes stamp set. That along with some Versamark ink. I'm going to ink up that stamp real well. Now it's a little bit difficult to see where you've placed the Versamark, especially if you're trying to see it on a screen. The best way to see it is to stamp your image, which I'll stamp this one in the center here. And then once you've stamped it, if you turn it a little bit into the light, there is a little bit of shine that you can see in real life, but you will not be able to see on the screen. So that's how you can tell where you've stamped your first image and the extra images that you're going to stamp so you don't overlap. Now I'm going to stamp another one up here, and I'm turning this stamp as I go so that it doesn't look like too much of a pattern. I'm going to stamp one down here. That. And then I'm going to stamp one just in this little pocket here on the edge, just a little edge of one of those sunflowers. And again, I'm going to stamp another one here. One down here. And another little couple of petals just coming in on the edge there, like that. Okay, now I have a piece of cardstock, a little index card actually, that I folded in half, and I'm going to apply this clear powder onto my strip of cardstock, and it's just going to stick to the flowers. And you can probably see, well, maybe not so much. You can see it a little bit if I do that. You can see they're just sticking, that embossing powder's just sticking to the flowers. And then just to make sure there isn't anything sticking anywhere I don't want it to, I'm just going to lightly blow on it. And that will remove any excess embossing powder from areas that it just might be clinging to a little bit. And I'm going to put my embossing powder away. So my next step is going to be to emboss this with my heat tool. Now I've read a few comments in our forum that some of you are not getting the embossing powder completely heated. And that might be that you're afraid to burn it, because I always say don't overheat it because you may burn it. But you don't want to burn it, but you also don't want to under emboss it or the powder will come right off. So when you emboss this, just kind of tilt it toward the light while you're embossing it, and once it turns shiny, then it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and start embossing this now. And it'll actually get shiny and smooth. And once that happens, then it is done and you can move on to the next area. And of course, your heat tool takes a couple seconds to heat up. It's not completely hot when you first start. So the first flower may take a little bit longer, but then it's going to go real fast as that heat tool gets hotter. Okay. So now I've got those shiny flowers there. And so I'm going to begin to do the emboss resist technique. I'm going to start with some of the honey mustard ink, and I'm going to rub my sponge dauber over the surface of that ink. Now you may notice that some of my sponge daubers look stained and dyed from using ink on them. That won't transfer to my project because I've washed those with soap and water and squeezed the excess water out of them and let them dry overnight. Once you do that, they're clean even though they're stained. So if you see a different color on my sponge dauber, it's because it's from the staining, not because that's the color I'm picking up. So here I have a little bit of that honey mustard, and I'm going to start by just kind of doing a circular motion and pulling in some of that color. And you can see now you can start to see the sunflowers peek through. And I'm going to do that over here too. I'm going to just be very strategic about just little bits of this color in different places. I'm not going to cover the entire thing with it because I'm going to be mixing other colors in too. You see how I'm just kind of picking little areas. I'm going to get that color nice and deep and dark. Okay, so I'm going to put that ink color aside, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of the fresh asparagus ink. And I'm going to ink this sponge dauber up with some of that. And I'm going to bring some of that color in next to some of those areas and blend it all together a little bit. Like that. And that's so pretty the way that just kind of all blends together. Okay, I might do a little bit on the side there and a little bit there, a little bit there. And then I'm going to add another color in, and that is going to be the prickly pear. So grab another dauber and ink that up, and then bring some of that pear in. Let's see, that is a really pretty color, and these all look so nice together. And don't worry about blending over colors that are already there. That's what you want to do. You want to really create that pretty blend where it looks like one color's fading into the next. And then finish it up over here like that. Now we need just a little bit of deepening in there, and that's where the chocolate brown's going to come in. So I'll ink up one more dauber with some chocolate brown, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of chocolate brown into some of these areas like that, just to deepen it a little bit. Looks really pretty over the sunflowers. Really brings out the light parts of the sunflowers, the ivory. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take a paper towel. I have a piece of paper towel here, and I'm going to rub over the surface of that to remove any ink that might be stuck to my sunflowers, to my embossing powder. I'll just make them pop out a little bit more, and then I'm going to clean up this ink in this area here. There, so there is my strip. Now, if you want to add other colors, you can. In my sample, which I'll show you, I added a little bit of tomato soup, and that looks really pretty too, so you can try doing some of that as well. Okay, so now I'm going to adhere these two pieces together using a little bit of adhesive. And there, those two pieces are together. And now this whole panel is going to go on top of this ivory panel. Before I do that, I do want to add a little bit of that craft ribbon, which I have right here. So I'm going to just rest this here, and then we're going to work on the rest of the card and the greeting, and then we'll assemble it, put it all together. Okay, so now I have another piece of cardstock here, and what I want to do is I want to stamp using this honey mustard ink. I'm going to ink up that same stamp again, and I'm going to stamp it once, and then I'm going to stamp it a second time here so that it's real pale. See that? Just a little bit of color coming through. And then I want to check to make sure that I'm going to be able to cut that out okay. Now, it looks like I'm going to be able to. Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay. And so then my next step is going to be to take that black ink, got the black ink here, and the greeting that I want to use. And I'm going to stamp that greeting right on top of that sunflower. And then I'm going to cut that out using this Spellbinders die. And again, I want to check to make sure that's going to work. You know what, let's stamp it one more time on the other side. Now if that ever happens to you, remember you can always stamp on the other side so it doesn't waste the cardstock. But let's just stamp that one more time. We'll stamp it down here, and then we'll stamp it off with a little bit of extra clearance there. And then we'll add the greeting. Let's add the greeting right here, like that. Now I'm going to grab the Cuttlebug. And the Cuttlebug is going to allow me to cut this out using my Spellbinders die. I'm going to start with an A and a B plate. I'm going to pop that on there along with that die and center it so that it looks nice. And then on top is going to go a C plate. And I'm also going to emboss this. So I'm going to flip it over and use the rubber mat on top. Add the second B plate, and then I like to use a piece of chipboard just to tighten it up a little bit. Now I'm going to just put that aside for a second because we're going to cut one more piece. I have this piece of dark chocolate here, and I'm going to use the scalloped circle. And all I need is my A and B plate and then the C plate on top. And that's ready to go. So now I'm going to add a little bit more shading on this. So I'm going to grab another sponge dauber and a little bit of that craft ink. I'm just going to ink that up a little bit, test that color, and then just in a circular motion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the color in from the outside toward the center a little bit. So just like that. See how I'm kind of turning it as I go? And that's just going to bring in some of that vibrant color, and it's going to leave a pretty little border in ivory around the outside. Although some of those little petals from the sunflower may have extended under there, that's okay. That will still give a very pretty look. Let me clean up this part here, and then we can take a look at what that looks like. There we go. And that is going to go on top of this piece of dark chocolate. Like that. And now we're going to bring in that strip again that I was working on. And I'm going to attach this piece of ribbon around the back because my greeting is going to go just about here like that. So I want it to kind of look like almost like a medallion with a ribbon coming down. So let's adhere this on the back. Like that. And then this whole strip can go on top of this ivory strip. Use some adhesive for that, and I always like to add a little bit of extra over that ribbon so it doesn't pop out. There we go. Now I have some of this pretty pattern paper. This is the wood grained pattern paper. And that is going to go on top of a piece of ivory cardstock. And I love this nice little thin border that goes around the outside. And then this whole panel is going to go on top like that. And I want to leave a little bit of extra room, so I'm going to position that up just a little bit higher because my greeting is going to come down a little bit on the card. So I want it to have some balance where this part is about the same distance away as this part is from this side. So let's adhere that onto this panel. And before we put that greeting on, we can put this whole piece right onto this dark chocolate card base. There we go. And now I'm going to grab some 1/4 inch pop dots because I want this to pop up a little bit, and I'm going to apply them just up on this side underneath just so that they attach to this part. So that's going to be more toward the top and off to the sides so it clears the ribbon. And then that will just go right on there. So let's remove these. And then this greeting is going to go right about here. And then we can press that down. And there is my finished card project. And I also want to show you another version of this card that I did where I mixed in some of the tomato soup so you can see more of that vibrant deep red in there. So here I didn't have the red, but in here you'll see that beautiful tomato soup. And that's kind of nice too because it picks up some of this wood color. Try this project using some of the more solid stamps from the new Stamp TV kit for a bolder look. And try mixing and matching pastel colors and jewel tones to make cards for other seasons.